game going on right now, guys. We've got that Panthers and Giants game going on right now, and it's not bad. It's actually not bad. There's some decent fantasy football upside in that game. I actually have both Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Chuba Hubbard in a dynasty league starting for me right now, and they're both doing pretty well. I mean, Tyrone Tracy Jr. had a big 35-yard run that he ended up getting in for a touchdown, so he's having a pretty good fantasy day so far. Wan'Dale Robinson's outperforming Malik Neighbors in fantasy right now, which is just really disgusting. I mean, honestly, this has been my problem over the weeks with Malik Neighbors, guys. I said it earlier in the week. Malik Neighbors is the wide receiver 48 over the past month in fantasy football. That's not good. That's really, really bad. So, the fact that he is not performing up to par again is not showing good signs. And of course, it's not all his fault. Daniel Jones, 9 of 17 for an interception today so far. That's been his day so far. So, that's how this game is going on the Giants side of the ball. And then the Panthers side, Chuba's crushing it, man. 17 carries for 137 yards. 8.1 yards per carry. That's he's crushing it today so far. So, Chuba Hubbard, guys, I've been saying it all year. Chuba Hubbard is that guy. And then our Panthers wide receivers are doing nothing special. Nothing going on, really. Jatavian Sanders becoming a decent tight end play for sure. But other than that, that's about how this game is going right here. And we've got, obviously, a lot of injuries to discuss. Nico Collins, a game-time call on Sunday night. Tyreek Hill, questionable, looking more like a game-time call on Monday night. So, there's just a lot of, bad injuries. And, of course, at this time of the year, we can't expect anything different. But, just not looking great as far as our wide receivers go, which is basically, it's par for the course. It is par for the course of how this season has gone at the wide receiver position in particular. So, that's what we're looking at right now. But make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. Let's get into some of y'all's questions as we go into this today. Alexis Milano is worried about Neighbors. Yeah, I mean, Neighbors, like I said, it all comes down to, can Daniel Jones deliver the ball? That's what it all comes down to realistically. And it doesn't look like he can really do it very well. I mean, it's just been a disaster the past month for Malik Neighbors because Daniel Jones is so hot and cold. This is theoretically a great matchup that he should be taking advantage of, and he's still not doing it. He's still not able to do it. So, yeah, I mean, it's a problem. It's a problem for sure. The only thing that's holding back Neighbors is Daniel Jones. Bezo Z, what's going on? Appreciate the... No, that wasn't a super chat. Khalil Shakir or Tank Dell? Tank is questionable tonight. I don't think he's going to miss, though. I don't think he's going to miss. Tank's expected to play, and then there's obviously the Nico Collins factor, which if he plays, probably lowers Tank's up. I don't know if it lowers his upside, but it lowers his floor. It lowers Tank's floor for sure. And then Khalil Shakir. Amari Cooper has been ruled out, by the way. So Khalil Shakir is the only one that matters. I mean, in Buffalo, it's him and Dalton Kincaid, who I think Kincaid will have a good day today. I'd probably go with Khalil Shakir now that it's Amari Cooper's out, Keon Coleman's out. I'd go with Khalil Shakir in that group right there. How you doing, by the way? Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you as well. Doing pretty good. Battling a little something sick going on, but we're doing it. We're making it. Owen Jorgen, what's going on? Thomas, Jennings, or Waddle with Mac Jones throwing to Thomas. Yeah, it's gross. But I did say this, though. Think about it like this. Trevor Lawrence has not been very good. He's not a very good player, and he hasn't been very good. So think about it like this. What is the drop-off in fantasy football from going to from going from Trevor Lawrence to Mac Jones. Like, really, realistically, what is the actual drop-off? I don't think it's particularly high. I don't think it's a particularly steep drop-off. I do think Jennings is a great play this week. I'll play Jennings over Thomas. Waddle is really the guy throwing the wrench in there. Because obviously if Tyreek misses, I think Waddle becomes a borderline must start. Because it is a matchup that they could potentially take advantage of, but Waddle has been bad. And I don't really want to take that risk right now. I mean, it does look like it at this point that it could easily be a game time call for Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek's playing tomorrow night. So I would just go with Jennings. Jennings is a must start for me this week. I love Jennings' matchup. I think Jennings is going to be really important in this game. I'm going to go with Juwan Jennings here. Nathaniel Perez, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Okay, Hopkins or Addison, and Nico or Juwan. Okay. Well, I'm going to... Hopkins and Addison is really close. Hopkins I've been talking about all week. Like, I don't think Hopkins is going to give a good game. Like, it's obviously easy to overlook this one because when you watch DeAndre Hopkins on Monday night, like, he started to look like DeAndre Hopkins of old, like, which was awesome to see. But it is important to keep in mind, like, that was against the Bucs. The Bucs defense has been getting crushed by everybody through the air. Like, they can't defend anybody through the air. So it doesn't come off as a surprise to me that they were able to do that. Well, this week they're taking on the Broncos, which that's just a much different story. Like, he has to take on Pat Surtain, and I've been saying all week that's a bad matchup. Obviously, we should all know that by now. That's a bad matchup. So I don't think that I don't think that personally. I don't think that it's like with Addison, his targets are so up in the air, but I think he has more upside this week, to be honest with you. Their matchup is good versus Jacksonville. I'm personally going to go ahead and play Jordan Addison over DeAndre Hopkins this week. That's what I'm going to do. So I'll go Addison over Hopkins, and I'll go with Nico. He looks like a game time call, and Juwan Jennings is playing here at noon. So you can't do this. This is my least favorite part of fantasy. When you have a player that is like needs to go in your lineup if they're available, but they have a Sunday or Monday night game and they're a game time call, then it stinks. And unfortunately, that's Nico's reality right now. So with Nico being a game time call, and I called Juwan Jennings a must-play guy this week, realistically, I can't go against Juwan Jennings. It just would not make sense for me to go against Juwan Jennings. So I'm going to go ahead and play Juwan Jennings because I think that's the path forward right there. Appreciate the super chat. That is how you get your question answered right away, is to do a super chat. Stay tired. What's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Should I trade Chuba with Brooks coming back or no? Unless you're getting like what he's actually worth, then no. This is a conversation that I've been addressing with Chuba Hubbard for all year now. Like, think about it like this. Jonathan Brooks, obviously second round pick. The community went from like Chuba's not even worth a draft pick barely because he was like undrafted in a lot of redraft leagues to okay, well, he's gonna be back in 4 weeks. Okay, so Chuba Hubbard, has a good first couple games there. Then we're getting down the line and it's week 10, and I don't think he was active today, was he? Was Jonathan Brooks? I don't think he was active today. Let's double check really quick, but I don't think he was. Yeah, he was inactive today. I mean, it's like, this guy's missed the first 10 games. Chuba's been great. He just got signed to an extension where like 15 or 16 million was guaranteed on that contract. I mean, this is the reality is like he's going to end up being a long-term answer. Like, he's a long-term answer at this point. So, yeah, I mean, it's just it's an interesting situation, man. It really is an interesting situation because Chuba, I don't see how he loses value. Like, I don't personally look at this and think to myself, like, I'm worried for Chuba Hubbard. I'm not. Chuba's performing well again today. Like, that's just the reality. That Chuba Hubbard's a good player, and we have no idea if Jonathan Brooks is even going to be good. One thing we do know for sure is they want to keep him. They just gave him $30+ million over 4 years. Like, they want to keep this guy. So, yeah, I don't, unless you're getting, like, right now, Chuba Hubbard's a running back 7.5 PPR. Unless you're getting it's going to sound crazy, but this is what it would take. Give me James Cook. Give me Kyron Williams. Give me Breece Hall. Give me Joe Mixon. Give me Devon Achane. Like, nobody's going to do that. So unless you can get that, I'm holding him. Because the guy's been really good, and he's going to continue to be really good. Brooks doesn't scare me. He just doesn't. So I'm holding on to him. Appreciate the super chat. Richard Cranium, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. I have Tyreek Hill, who's questionable. Indeed. I'm not sure I should hold out and not have an option. Only wide receivers left for me are Shakir, Moore, or J-Mo. Thoughts? Thank you. Wide receivers, Shakir, Moore, or J-Mo. Yeah, I mean, you can't take the risk on Tyreek because all those guys are playing today. You know, and Tyreek, like, last thing I saw about him is that he's a true questionable, and I saw that McDaniel had said, like, he's doing everything possible to play, but, yeah, I mean, he looks like a game-time call. That's just how it looks right now, and what I read was that McDaniel was kind of saying, like, yeah, I mean, he's going to try to play, but, you know, we don't really have optimism or pessimism, which is not like a good answer to give as far as like giving you confidence to being able to play Tyreek because he's a Monday night game. So unless you had like Jalen Waddle, then it doesn't make sense to take that chance. I'd play Shakir. Shakir's the best option. DJ Moore is just he can't trust DJ Moore, and J-Mo's the same boat. Shakir's the option today. There's no Keon, and there's no Amari. So Shakir makes the most sense. I'd go with Shakir. Appreciate the super chat. Chaluto, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. I'm starting a Dunze over Amari. I have no choice. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Amari's out. Yeah, that stinks. It definitely stinks for sure. Amari, this whole thing, I didn't really see him playing because they had been saying like during this week of practice, like he was a limited practice participant all week, but like he wasn't even able to catch the football. Like his wrist injury is bothering him, obviously. So yeah, it stinks. But Odunze is like you could do worse for sure. Odunze could have a decent game. Like he's becoming their biggest play threat at this point. DJ and Caleb have no chemistry, and Keenan's just a target guy that's like close to the line of scrimmage. So yeah, I mean that's you could do worse. You could do worse for sure. Appreciate the super chat. Nicholas Bond, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Half PPR, one wide receiver, and one flex. Downs, Jennings, and Pollard. Downs, Jennings, and Pollard. Yeah, I mean, Josh Downs to me is a must start. He is. Like, there's no Pittman today. Their matchup versus the Bills is beatable. And Downs wasn't great last week, but he also, that was kind of like a floor game, honestly. Like, he has become Flacco's number one target without question. And Downs, with Flacco this year. So that Pittsburgh game, 18.2 fantasy points, but 9 targets, 12 targets, 9 targets with Flacco, and then he just had another 9-target game versus Minnesota. So he's the number one target, regardless of if it's Pittman there or Pittman out. It doesn't matter. That's the number one target. And he has 6 catches for 60 yards. Again, not a bad game, but obviously not what we were wanting from Downs last week, but realistically, Downs this week versus the Buffalo Bills, like the matchup is still fine, and there's no Pittman, so Downs to me is must start, and I'm gonna play Jennings over Pollard. Like with Pollard, he's taking on the Chargers. Like that's not a good matchup. That's not a good matchup at all. And Pollard has been, I know he's like coming in without an injury designation. He's been dealing with injury though, so he's not completely healthy. And I just think Jennings has the more upside this week. I'll go Downs and I'll go with Jennings. Appreciate the super chat. Grits, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Would Tyreek Hill a game time call? I grabbed DeMarcus Robinson as a backup. Any better waiver wire wide receiver options for tomorrow night you'd recommend? Well, I do know that I think DeMarcus Robinson, last time I checked, was questionable. No, he's all cleared. Okay, yeah, I think that's a pretty fair option. I mean, Odell is a waiver wire option for that Monday night game, but I'd much prefer DeMarcus Robinson. Jordan Whittington, probably not worth anything since DeMarcus Robinson's playing. Malik Washington, maybe. That might be the guy who benefits. Honestly. Yeah, honestly, Malik Washington may be the guy who benefits the most if Tyreek doesn't play. I mean, outside of Waddle, of course. Like, Waddle's going to get the majority of the work if Tyreek doesn't play, but, like, Odell's a bum. Like, Odell, it's over. It's over for Odell. Washington may have a surprise game. I'm going to put him on the radar for everybody. Malik Washington may be a shock play this week. If Tyreek doesn't play tomorrow night, Malik Washington may end up being a decent play. That's what I'm going to say about that. But considering all the options for tomorrow night, I think you've got the best one with DeMarcus Robinson now. So I would just say stick with DeMarcus Robinson. Appreciate the super chat. Spencer Goldberg, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. PPR, pick 2. Dell, Downs, and Mooney. Mooney's going in for sure, and I'd say Downs going in. Yeah, listen, I just want to say this really quick. I always go through, every week now, I go through a video that is declaring must starts for borderline players that I have a lot of conviction on in the week. And I give you my reasons why. And those are the guys that I think are going to go really have a good game this week. I think that it's also important to note that those videos, I could easily just go with the obvious guys, right? Like going with, like Bijan or like going with Drake London. It's like, we already know that those guys are must start. Honestly, to me, like Downs is already a must start because of the fact that there's no Pittman this week and the matchup's fine. I think Downs is definitely must start, and I also think Mooney's must start too. London's playing today, but like with or without London, like Mooney's gonna be involved. And this matchup against the Saints, give me the matchup, man. Like the Saints defense is down bad, and they're only getting worse. They've got no more Lattimore. Their secondary is already banged up, and Mooney's on a hot streak, man. Mooney has had. Let's look at Darnell Mooney really quick. Last 2 games, 17 points, 16 points, half PPR. Like the guy's been really involved. So, yeah, I mean Mooney's gonna be a good play this week. I like Tank, but I just think that Downs and Mooney are like kind of easy must starts to me, to be honest with you. So I'll do that. Appreciate the super chat. Steven Ramos, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat today. 3 wide receiver, 1 flex. Start Jetta, CD, Downs, Ridley, or Addison. So Downs is going in. Of course, Justin's going in. And CD's going in for sure. I think that, with CeeDee Lamb, obviously there's going to be concerns with upside this week, and I think they're realistic. I think that what everybody should know is that at this point, CD's upside is related to targets. Like, whether or not he gets a bunch of targets, that determines how much upside he has. That's the reality. Is like if he ends up getting 15 targets, like that's where his upside is going to be. He doesn't have like big play upside or anything like that, I don't think. So he needs 15 targets today, which I think he will get because Philly's going to crush the Cowboys. So they're going to have to throw to CD to be – it's not going to be competitive, but they're going to have to throw to CD to at least try to be competitive. So I'll go with CD for sure. And the flex between Ridley and Addison – Ridley with Will Levis, that's going to stink. I mean, I have a feeling that's going to really stink up the joint. Let's look at Calvin Ridley. Games where he's played with, I'm missing him. There he is. Games where he's played with Levis and with Rudolph. So last week was with Rudolph. He had 9.8 fantasy points. Detroit, that game was with Mason Rudolph. He had a good game. Buffalo, did Rudolph play that game? Let me look. Let's look at Will Levis this year and what games he's actually played. This guy's a joker. He's just a straight up joker, man. Last game he played was against Indianapolis. So that was the Rudolph game. He did not very good. But Indianapolis, he was horrific. 8 targets and no catches. Horrible. Horrible. Oh, man. Levis then played the first 4 games of the year. And he had one good game against the Jets with Levis. Yeah, dude, Levis is horrible. He is so bad. I'm going to go with Addison for the upside. I think Addison really does have better upside than Ridley does with Levis. Addison, at least he's got a functional quarterback and a good matchup. Levis doesn't have either. Or I'm sorry, Ridley doesn't have either this week. They're taking on Minnesota, and their quarterback is he's a disaster. No, they're not taking on Tennessee. They're taking on the Chargers today. Not a good matchup. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Addison, and then my wide receivers are gonna be Justin Jefferson, CD, and Josh Downs. Appreciate the super chat. PC, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. DeMario or Johnston? PPR just need a solid floor. Well, the solid floor I think probably comes from DeMario Douglas because the Patriots their matchup isn't good today. They're taking on the Bears, but let's look at DeMario Douglas. I mean, you can't – here's what I'll say about this. I don't think either of those guys are going to give you a solid floor. Like, Douglas is going to give you the floor of a guy who always gets targeted. Like, he's going to get you, with Drake May, like, he's been getting, 9 targets, couple 3-target games, but 9 targets. Like, one of those games was Jacoby Brissett. So that's what he'll give you. More targets. But at the same time, like, Johnston, I do think, like, you can't get a safe floor from either of these guys, I don't think. So I don't really look at this as in terms of, like, safe floor versus, like, unsafe. Both of these guys are low floor players. So in a PPR format, like, Douglas may have the safer floor, I guess, in a PPR. But Johnston, I'll say this. If you really just want a purely the safest floor, Douglas is probably the better play. But understand this. Like, Johnston's floor is not that much lower than Douglas. And his upside is a lot higher this week. He's got a much better matchup versus the Titans. And his upside is just higher. So, personally for me, like, I'm playing Johnston, but if you truly are just wanting, like, the safest floor, then I would say DeMario Douglas is probably that guy. They're not that far off, though. Appreciate the super chat. Adam Thompson, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Think Mac Jones can feed BTJ. My entire bench is on bye this week, so I have no choice but to send it. Wish me luck. Like I said, I've been saying this for a couple days now. Like, I don't think that there's going to be a significant drop-off. Like, I really don't believe there's a significant drop-off between Lawrence and Mac Jones. Like, Lawrence obviously is the better NFL quarterback than Mac Jones, but Lawrence is not good. Like, Lawrence is not very good, and he hasn't had a good year at all. Like, Trevor Lawrence is completing 61% of his throws, and he's thrown 11 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Like, it's not like he's been I don't think there's going to be a dramatic drop-off. I think he'll be able to feed him just as much as Lawrence has. Like, honestly, I don't think there's that big of a drop-off. I mean, we may come out here today and I might look like an idiot, but, like, to me, there doesn't seem to be that big of a drop-off, to be honest with you guys. So I think you're fine doing it. I mean, I'm not saying that it's, like, the greatest play in the world, but, like, I don't think it's going to be that big of a drop-off, to be honest with you guys. Good luck, man, but, I mean, I do think you're going to be okay, honestly. Appreciate the super chat. Dizzy B, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Just got in word Malik Neighbors is being evaluated for a concussion. So that would be his second concussion this year. Not good. Not good at all. Lamb, McConkey, Nico sit one. Well, obviously, McConkey would be the guy to sit if we knew Nico was going to play, but we don't know that. So let's look. What time? I think they're the 3 o'clock game. Yeah. So Chargers playing at 3 today. So I'll say this: if we get to like 2:50, 2:55 Central Time, and you haven't heard anything about Nico playing, I would just go ahead and sit Nico. I mean, you can't take the chance. Like, both of these guys, Lamb and Ladd, are both playing at the 3 o'clock spot today. So it's like, you can't really take a chance and just, like, put Nico in your lineup. You know what I mean? Because Nico is, like, right now, like, amidst all the reports that I've seen all week, like, he looks like he's probably a game time call. Like, logically, it doesn't make sense why he wouldn't be. Right? Like, they activated him off the IR, but he also didn't practice at all this week except Friday. He hasn't gotten any definitive word. Some people say he's leaning towards playing. Some people say he's not. Right? So, like, there's plenty of room for error here. And it looks like, I mean, honestly, it just kind of looks like he's nothing more than a game time call. So, if we get to 3 o'clock, or like 2:50, 2:55 Central Time, and you haven't heard one way or another whether Nico's playing, just go ahead and put him on your bench, unfortunately. And if he does play, unfortunate, but realistically, like, you just can't take that chance. Appreciate the super chat. Jessica Lauren, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. PPR, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 flex, starting Lamb, Taylor, Hunt. And then I have Collins, Debo, Puka, Jennings, Connor, Dobbins, and Ferguson or Kincaid. So I'm assuming the last 2 is like picking between a tight end. If that's the case, I'd pick Kincaid over Ferguson for sure. Kincaid is a must-start player for me this week. The matchup's great against the Colts today, and he's also one of 2 effective receiving options. It's Khalil Shakir. It's Khalil Shakir and it's Dalton Kincaid. Those are our best options right there. That's it. So to me, if you're looking for a like definitive tight end play, I think that's your play right there. Kincaid over Ferguson. I would go with. So you're starting Lamb, Taylor, and Hunt. Yeah, I mean, obviously Nico, if he plays, you want him in, but you can't take Taylor or Hunt out of your lineup. Those are your 2 running backs, anyways. Connor and Dobbins, I like both their plays this week. I'd go with Dobbins over Connor personally. I think the matchup's really good. Dobbins would be my flex. Your other wide receiver outside of CD. Honestly, here's what I would do. So your running backs are good. Taylor and Hunt, and I would play Dobbins as your flex. Your wide receivers, I think, should be CeeDee. And what I would do personally is I would bench Debo and Jennings. And depending on if Nico plays or not, I would play Nico or Puka. Because the good news is that Puka is the Monday night game. So he may end up, obviously Puka's going to play, but we may end up getting good word on Nico before that game. So if Nico plays tonight, I'd play him and sit Puka. But if Nico doesn't play, your safety net is Puka. Because I think Nico's got the way I look at it is this, right? You've got, the upside is the best with Nico out of your wide receivers. So if Nico's able to play, you want him to play. And in your case, Jessica, you have the option because you've got Puka on Monday night. So it makes sense to me to just roll the dice on those two because it's not really a dice roll. You've got a safety net with Puka if Nico doesn't play. So that's what I would do personally. I would go between Puka and Collins, and if Nico plays tonight, I'd play Nico. Appreciate the super chat. Hanwan, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Pick 2, DeMarcus Robinson, Mostert, Keenan, no PPR. No PPR, I'm definitely going to go with Mostert and DeMarcus Robinson. Robinson's been a touchdown threat as of late, and obviously, in a non-PPR format, you're going to have to prioritize running backs over wide receivers, especially wide receivers who are more PPR wide receivers like Keenan is. Keenan is not a half PPR. I mean, he's fine at half PPR, but he's not a standard scoring wide receiver. This guy is getting targets that are not down the field, so his big play upside is minimal. So you have to look at Robinson as the better play in a standard league. He's got more touchdown upside, and Mostert, obviously the running back in the room, has more upside as well. So I would go with Robinson, and I would go with Mostert here in a non-PPR format. Appreciate the super chat. Super chats do get your questions answered immediately. That's how you jump the line. But until then, we'll just go from top to bottom and answer those questions that way. Wing Sand, what's going on? Tyreek Hill or Cortland Sutton? Hill is now game time decision. You got to go Sutton. You have to. You've got to go with Sutton. It stinks, but you just have to do it. Charles Sino, full PPR, Jennings or Hill? Got to go with Jennings. Got to do it. Ice Cold OG Jones, what's going on? Should I drop Warren or Mason to bring on CMC for my IR spot? I'd drop Warren personally, just in case of re-injury. I will say this, one thing that did encourage me was that it did encourage me that I saw a report that said McCaffrey is looking to get a normal workload today. He's going to get 20 plus touches today. That shows me that he really is back. So I'd hang on to Mason just for now to see what happens with CMC, and I'd probably drop Warren because you got to drop one of them. You got to play McCaffrey today for sure. Let's do a really quick update on this Panthers-Giants game. Again, good fantasy upside from our running backs here. I'm playing both running backs in a dynasty league. I'm playing Chuba and I'm playing Tracy, and it's working out well. Tracy, 15 carries, 94 yards, 6.3 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Great must-start call that I made this week. Wandale's producing fine. Malik Neighbors may not come back. He's being evaluated for a concussion. And that's pretty much it for Giants pass catchers. Daniel Jones salvages upside in fantasy by getting a rushing touchdown. Chuba's been excellent. 19 carries, 138 yards, 7.3 yards per carry, and a touchdown. 3 catches, 14 yards through the air. And Jalen Coker and Xavier Legette are doing nothing. So the running backs here are the stories. Definitely in this game. And so that's just the way things are going right now. But, realistically, happy I played both those guys in my own Dynasty League. All right, let's get back into it. We'll go from top to bottom. Uh, Chris Sims, what's going on? Jamar went off for me on Thursday. Collins, Moore, or Downs for wide receiver 2 and flex. Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, Downs is going in for sure. Downs is a for sure ski. What time does DJ Moore play? Is he playing at 12? Is he playing at noon? Yes, he is. Yeah, you got to play DJ Moore, unfortunately. I don't want to play DJ Moore, but I mean, you don't have a choice. Like, Nico is a game time call. Like, he's a 50-50 call. I honestly, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he does play, to be honest with you. Like, the way I don't want anybody to make a decision based off what I'm about to say, but I'm going to tell you what my personal belief is. I think Nico's going to play. Everything we've heard about Nico is that he's been, like, mobile, like his mobility's back. He's totally fine. We've also heard that like, he didn't practice, obviously, this week until Friday, but they activated him off the IR. So roster moves indicate he's going to play. I think they're just kind of messing with the Lions. That's like my belief personally. Is they're just messing with the Lions a little bit. I think he's playing, and I think they know he's playing. So that's what I think is going to happen. I think that he's going to play. But again, don't make a move based off what I just said there. That's a personal belief for me, but you can't take that chance. So I'm going to go with Moore, and I'm going to go with Downs as the wide receiver 2 in flex. Eckler or Pollard? Jaden asks. I'd go with Pollard. Yeah, Pollard's the better play. Don't like the matchup, but I mean, listen, Pollard is just he's their best option. Like, Ridley's a great option for them, but they can't give him the ball. Like, Levis is just going to gift wrap gifts to defenders and, like, in the form of football. Like, it's just going to be another gross game from Will Levis, but a great game for fantasy defense. Yeah, I think that he's the better play. Pollard's the better play. He's more consistently going to be the guy, whereas Eckler is still sharing with Rodriguez Jr. and McNichols. It's like there's just no consistency there. Alex Irk, start Nico or Downs in case it is play. Gotta go with Downs. Downs is not a bad play though. Don't feel bad with going with Josh Downs, because Downs is gonna be a good play for sure. Reese Thomas, Devonta Smith or Tank Dell? I'd go with Devonta Smith for sure. Smith is just in the better, like, it's just a more trustable offensive situation, and regardless of if AJ plays or not, and he will, obviously, but regardless of that, like, he's going to be involved. Patrick G. Mafia, Laporta, White, or ETN for flex? Have players on bye. Laporta, White, or ETN? I'd go with Rachaad White, because Rachaad White is just like the best play at running back in Tampa. Like, I think he's the better play at running back in Tampa because he's going to give you receiving upside. And in another matchup, which stinks versus the 49ers, like, Bucky's the better runner, but the match, like, he's not a bust-proof player. Like, he will bust. It really comes down to matchup, right? So, yeah, I just think that I think that's how it goes. This is hilarious. I just want to point this out really quick. So the Giants got the ball. The Panthers were at their own 20. The Giants got the ball. And then Daniel Jones, he threw another interception. Now the Panthers have the ball back. They might just give it back to him. It's such an embarrassment. It really is an embarrassment. Daniel Jones he's a clown too. I mean, we've got some clowns in the room. Will Levis is a clown. Daniel Jones is a clown. And I hope for Giants fans' sakes, and I hope for Malik Neighbors' sake, they really move on from him. They have got to end this madness. It is a disaster. Even if you go with a bridge quarterback for a year and you don't get Shedeur Sanders in the draft this year, just move on, man. It's bad. Back to the questions. Big Hoss Outdoors. I got CMC or Aaron Jones at flex. Then London, Pickens, Waddle, Downs, or Hopkins at wide receiver 2. Full PPR. CMC's going in my lineup. Yeah, if he plays, he's going in. That's how I feel about that. Especially with the report that he's going to get a normal workload. He's coming in today, and they said that he's expecting to get 20 opportunities. That's great. That's all we really need from McCaffrey. Wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 2 is, it's got to be London. Yeah, London's the best play. I mean, London is just London's going to play number 1, and the matchup versus the Saints is pretty awesome. And London's been great. London has been pretty awesome. Nate Dogg, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Can you help me with my situation? I have to start 2 flex and 2 wide receivers. I have Harris, Moore, Taysom Hill, Puka, Ertz, and Nico. 2 flex and 2 wide receivers. Harris, Moore, Taysom, Puka, Ertz, and Nico. So Puka's going in for sure. And I mean, it sucks, but you have to put in Moore. You have to put in DJ Moore. Harris, I'm assuming it's Najee Harris, right? I'm assuming that's who you're talking about. You've got to put in DJ Moore and Puka at wide receiver. I mean, it's just Nico, there's no update. There's no good answer for Nico right now. It looks like Nico Collins is going to be a true game time call. That's the only thing we've gotten up to this point. And DJ's playing at noon. So you've got to play DJ Moore because you can't risk that. So those would be our 2 wide receivers. So Najee, Taysom, Ertz, and Nico. Taysom's going in. I remember you and I had talked about this last night on Patreon. And I said, I think Taysom's actually going to be a good play this week. I do. Taysom Hill, last week was a good play. And the good thing with Taysom is that he is a couple weeks out of the year, he's going to give you a good game. This looks like it's going to be one of those games, too. I predicted the first one, didn't predict this recent one. I think this is going to be a good Taysom game, too. Because Taysom is, he's the lone wolf. They don't have anything else. It is just Alvin Kamara. They have Mason Tipton starting at wide receiver, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's going to he's going to get work today. Taysom Hill's getting work today. So, for me personally, yeah, I mean, Taysom makes a lot of sense in the flex, and then Najee's the better play than Ertz, for sure. Najee's the better play. Ertz, I did want to say this last week. So, Zach Ertz, he lost volume last week to Ben Sinnott. He lost volume. Not saying it's going to be consistently like that, but it does look like Ben Sinnott may start to get a little bit more involved. Let me find Ben Sinnott to show you what his numbers were. Last week, Zach Ertz had 1 target in that game. Ben Sinnott, where are you? Way down here because you haven't done anything. Ben Sinnott. I'm missing him. There he is. Ben Sinnott. Last week, 1 target for 1 reception. Maybe not as much as I thought he was getting. But I think that Najee's the better play. Like Najee, the way he's played over the past 3 weeks, one thing is good to know about Najee is like he's on a contract here. So even if like he starts to maybe split the backfield a little bit, he's still going to be playing really hard. So I do think Najee ends up being a pretty good play this week. In your options, I would go with Najee, I would go with Taysom at the flex, and I would play Moore and Puka at wide receiver. Unfortunately, you just can't take the shot on Nico. Appreciate the super chat. Chico Man 831. What's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Which two? Shakir, Brian Thomas Jr., Amari Cooper, Ramondre Stevenson. I will go with, you can't play Cooper. Cooper's out. No Amari Cooper. It's a non-PPR league. I'd definitely go with Stevenson for one of them. And I'd go with Shakir over Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah, Shakir just being the only option with Allen versus Brian Thomas Jr. with Mac Jones. Like, I'd much rather take Downs in that situation. That just makes the most sense to me. Yeah, so I'd go with Shakir and I'd go with Ramondre. Ramondre, the matchup versus the Bears, I don't love it, but in a non-PPR format, you just have to prioritize running backs over wide receivers. And, you know, this was actually, I will say this was pointed out to me during my running back rankings video this week. Somebody was like, dude, you always have Ramondre ranked so low, and he's done pretty well this year, all things considered. He's averaging like 14 fantasy points per game in a half PPR format. Like, why isn't he higher? And I honestly sat there and I was like, I think that's a fair point. Like, it's a pretty fair point. I guess the way I look at it is I just struggle to trust him on a week-to-week basis because of the team that he's on. But realistically, it's kind of a Tony Pollard situation where the upside's there because they get everything, and they played pretty well this year. Especially in a non-PPR format, I think Ramondre ends up being a pretty solid play. So yeah, I think that Ramondre is going to be the play, and along with Khalil Shakir. Appreciate the super chat. All right, we're going to take a couple more questions, then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up early today. Hawkinson or Ingram? Ryan Allen asks. I'd go with Hawkinson. Ingram hasn't been providing much upside lately. He just really hasn't. I'd go with Hawkinson. Bills, Chiefs, and Philly. Do you think they all three will win? Yeah, I think so. I think Bills, Chiefs, and Philly are going to win this game. Yeah, I do. Elk 597. Appreciate the super chat. Nico or Tank Dell if they both play today? Oh, Nico if he plays. Yeah, if Nico plays, that's going to be the move, for sure. Nico Collins, if he plays, is the better play than Tank, without question. Because if Nico plays, like, ultimately think about it like this. Like, they gave him 4 weeks. They put him on the IR. They didn't even, like, think about it. After the hamstring injury, they immediately put the dude on IR. And reports that whole time were that he was doing great. He was ahead of schedule. Now, him not practicing this week until Friday was definitely not ideal. But everything was, like, weird. Because they were saying, like, he was full range of motion, his speed's back and everything like that. I think if he plays, they're being obviously cautious with him, which is a good thing. That's a good thing because they're a playoff team with playoff aspirations. They don't want to use this guy before he's ready. So in my opinion, if he plays tonight, that signals that he's ready to go. So for me, yeah, if Nico plays tonight, I'm definitely going with Nico over Tank Dell. He'll be a great play. Appreciate the moment that Nico plays, you've got to play him. You have got to play Nico Collins. So that's what I'll do. Appreciate the super chat. Adrian Hernandez, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Wide receiver 2, flex. Debo, McLaurin, Connor. Kicker, Bass or Moody. McLaurin's going in my lineup without question. And I think I'm going to play Connor over Debo. No, I'm not. I'm going to play Debo over Connor. Debo's matchup versus the Bucs is awesome. He's coming off a bye. He's going to play. I just think he's going to hit a big one this week. I don't know. It's kind of a gut call. I'll tell you this. That's more of a gut call for me. I just have a feeling that Debo's going to hit big this week. Coming off the bye week. And coming off the bye week and in this matchup, I think it's a good matchup. I think that he's going to hit. It's a gut call, but they're close enough to where I'd say if you're leaning the other way, then go with Connor. But I think they're both good plays, but I'm leaning Debo based off a gut feeling. So I'd go with Debo and I'd go with Terry. Kicker is Bass or Moody. I'd definitely go with Moody. I think Moody's the better matchup. I don't think the Buffalo Bills are in a bad matchup, and especially without two playmakers, they could be in line for more field goals this week. The Bills usually, he's prone to missing. Moody's been great. It's his return game. They're coming off the bye week. I think they're going to move the ball at will. Versus the Bills, I would say might struggle a little bit more to move the ball today. So I'm going to go with Moody personally. Appreciate the super chat. Okay, we'll take a couple more questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Tank Dell or Calvin Ridley? Either way, I'd go with Tank Dell. The matchup versus Detroit is good. Calvin's matchup is not as good, and he's got Will Levis throwing the ball. So yeah, that makes a big difference to me. So I'd go with Tank regardless of if Nico plays or not. Mauricio Ponce, Jalen Warren, or Tyler Algier? Darnold or Goff? I'll go with Algier this week. I love the matchup, and I mean, they're both just as likely to handle the rock as each other. So I'd go with Algier. And then Darnold or Goff, I'm going with Darnold this week. I love Darnold. I really like Darnold playing him today. Would you play Downs over Nico? Yep, I would. Should I start Tank Dell in my flex or TJ Hawkinson? Ooh, that's an interesting one. I think I would personally go with Tank Dell. Because with Tank, there's less competition for targets. And I think they'll be in a much more competitive matchup. They're going to have to throw. Because Detroit, I think, is going to win this game tonight. I think Houston will need to throw to be competitive. I don't think this is, honestly, I don't think it's a particularly great game for Mixon. Mixon will be fine because he's been great, but honestly, I think that the game script for Hawkinson, they're going to crush the Jags today. So he's not going to have many opportunities, and he's got already more target competition than Tank. I'd go with Tank. Christian Miller, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Start Hopkins or Taysom Hill today? Ooh, man, that's a close one. That's a really close one. Because I don't like playing Hopkins, and Taysom is so boomer bust. But I do think this week is a good week for Taysom. Now, I want to say this. Hopkins is not a must bench. I would not have called Hopkins a must bench this week. Because the reality with the Chiefs is that they're so creative offensively, they're going to find a way to get one of their best playmakers the ball. They're just going to. They will find a way. So I don't think that it's you can't play him anytime. Taysom, I think his floor is a lot lower because he could do nothing. I think his ceiling is higher though. Man, that's why it's a tough one. I think Taysom has a much lower floor, but at the same time, I do think that Hopkins, but he has the higher ceiling than Hopkins. Ooh. I'm going to go with Taysom because there's just so much potential that he gets a bunch of touches. And with with Hopkins, he's going to be limited this week because they can't just line him up like they did against the Bucs and just expect Surtain to not be 10 times better versus Hopkins than he played versus the Bucs last week. It's just a much different, much more difficult matchup. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Taysom over Hopkins. It's close, but I'm gonna go with Taysom. Appreciate the super chat. Magenta, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Downs, Shakir, or Stevenson? Pick two to start. I'm going with Downs, and I'll go with Ramondre. Regardless of whether it's a full PPR, half PPR, standard scoring, I'll go with Ramondre because I think that his situation is more trustworthy. Like, the one thing I'll say about Shakir is that Keon missed, I think, like 1 or 2 games before they grabbed Amari Cooper. And Shakir was not, like, he's not a number one. Like, there was the week, I don't remember which week it was, but the week before they traded for Hopkins. And I think Keon didn't play very much in that game. And we kind of, like, were expecting, Shakir to have this really good game. And he didn't. Because he's not a true number one. So, I think Shakir's a good start in a lot of ways, but he's not, like, anybody that has to go in your lineup. I think Ramondre is still the better play because he's going to get the workload, and he's done really well this year. So I'll go with I'll go with Downs, and I'll go with Stevenson. Appreciate the super chat. Bucky Dent, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Tyreek, Dell, Devonta, or Ladd? I'm thinking Devonta, but I don't know. Yeah, I'd go with Devonta Smith. Tyreek, you can't do it. Dell would be close if Nico doesn't play, but again, we don't know. Ladd is... I think it applies to Devonta Smith too. I think what Devonta Smith and Ladd will both see today is their teams are going to crush their opponents. Eagles are going to crush the Cowboys, and the Chargers are going to crush the Titans. So I think what we'll see is just a game where... ultimately, I think we'll just see a game where both teams don't need to throw the ball much. But with Tyreek, you can't rely on him. And with Tank, he's already questionable with the back. He's going to play. But Tank, if Nico plays, I just don't see much upside for him. It's close, but I'll go with Devonta Smith. Devonta and Tank have been a very frequently asked question this week, and I'm leaning Devonta Smith. I will say this. It is relatively close, though. It is relatively close. If you have a gut feeling that you should play Tank, then do it, but it looks like your gut is telling you Devonta Smith, so I'd just go ahead and stick with that. Appreciate the super chat. Nate Dogg, what's going on, my man? Appreciate the super chat. Pick two, Tyreek, Marvin Harris Jr., or Shakir. Well, you can't do Tyreek. I mean, that's just the simple reality. You cannot do Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill you can't rely on him to play. Because Marvin is playing at 3 Central Time today, and Shakir is playing at noon. So you can't rely on Tyreek. I mean, you just can't. Yeah. You have to go with Marvin. You have to go with Shakir. If it was a perfect scenario and you didn't have to worry about Tyreek, then I would say Tyreek and I would say Shakir over Marvin personally. But it's just the unfortunate reality with Tyreek right now is that he's a Monday night game. He looks like a true game time call, and you don't have an option to take this shot on. You don't want to take the shot and get 0. So I'd just rather go ahead and play Marvin and Shakir. Appreciate the super chat. All right, we'll go ahead and end it off with Adrian Hernandez. Appreciate the super chat. Defense, Chicago, Kansas City, quarterback, Donald Stafford. I will go with I'll go with the Bears defense because their defense has been better in fantasy They both have solid matchups, but I think that Kansas City, they've struggled to get turnovers. They've struggled to get after the quarterback a bunch, and the Bears have had issues with neither. So it makes more sense to go with it makes more sense to go ahead and play the Bears for me. The Chiefs are a good play too, but the Bears are, I think, the better option. And then quarterback, Darnold or Stafford. I would go ahead and play Darnold. I think Darnold's a great play this week. I really do. I call Darnold a must start. I think this matchup is excellent. And even though I think they're going to crush the Jags, Stafford has been a good play lately, but Sam Darnold, if you looked at his game log, he has not had any game outside of 17 fantasy points this year, except for one. He's been pretty awesome this year in fantasy. Matchup's great. I'll go with Darnold. I think he's a must-start guy. And I'll go with the Bears defense. Appreciate the super chat. We're going to go ahead and end it off there. Sorry, guys. Battling through a little something. We're going to be fine, though. We're going to be fine. We're still going to have the content as normal this week. So, like the video. Subscribe to the channel on your way out. Appreciate y'all being in here. We will see you guys for the Week 11 videos. Enjoy the day. Let's win today, guys. Appreciate y'all.